All right, folks, make sure you do us a favor and check out our awesome sponsors. Of course, the links are below down there for them and our guest this week. And, of course, you can find all of our information there, too. All right, folks, short and sweet. Let's get on with it to this week's guest, Mr. Frankie C. So this episode of the AVB Podcast, we've managed to come all the way up to Toronto to hang out with the winner of Shredders of Metal, Mr. Frankie C. What's going on, Frankie?
Hey, not much, man. Having a good day.
Thanks for joining us. Rainy day out there today.
Yeah, a little bit.
That sort of explains this. But the reason we came up here, I had gotten an email from some of your people talking about the show before it came up, and I got really excited because I actually knew one of the other contestants as well, Bree. I've known for a long time. And so I checked it out for sure. I saw it when it came through, watched a couple of the episodes, saw how spectacular of a guitar player you were,
thanks,
and then find out you won the thing.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Tell me about normally when we get started here, we talk about very early experiences, but I kind of want to do things a little backwards with you.
Okay.
Tell me about what the last, because when did you guys tape?
The Shredders of Metal show,
Yeah.
I think it was at the end of April.
End of April.
I think we were filming at the end of April.
So walk me into that experience, because I kind of get the idea that it happened quickly.
It did happen quickly. All the filming was done over the course of 2 days.
Okay.
Basically, like, I just saw the casting call that Banger had put up on social media, and I put a video together and I sent it to them, and they got back to me.
How quick of a process was that, though?
Probably within about a week.
Yeah, it wasn't a long drawn out thing for them, was it?
No, it was pretty quick. They were really on the ball.
Nice. How did you hear about it in the first place?
Just off of social media. Yeah, I saw the Banger on their Facebook page that they had put the casting call. And I was just like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm into it.
Did you have any trepidations about it? Because like you're kind of a well-known guy in the world of metal guitar, that sort of thing, right? And the idea of the competition thing, I know, like, you know, you sit in bars and talk about it, and the first thing everybody does is shit on it, right?
Yeah, well, as we know, like, music's not really a competition, so to speak, right? But I thought it would be a great opportunity and a good chance for some extra exposure, and I thought it would be fun regardless, so I was into doing it. So.
Is this the first sort of, like, music competition you've joined?
Well, actually, like, in terms of actual competition, the band, I've played in a band called Vesperia for about 5 years now, and in 2015, we were actually the international Vakken metal champs. So
Vakken metal?
Yeah.
Sorry. So metal is so diverse. I don't know if you're talking about a brand or a type of metal that I've never heard of.
Vakken is actually the Vakken's like a metal festival, like a worldwide metal festival that takes place in Germany.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I think 2014 was the first year where they had it take place in Canada. Okay. So basically, what happens is all the bands get together and they put together all these series of shows with like an elimination process.
Okay.
So all different types of metal bands enter, and they do basically the competition within their country, and then the winner of every like country will go to Germany, and they'll play at the Vakken Open Air Metal Festival, and then basically one band from each country will compete there, and then, you know, you're like, there's basically within 5 spots. Vesperia actually won the first place internationally in Germany.
Holy
so that was
shit.
in 2015. So that's like another competition that we've taken.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, you know what, actually, let's come back to that. Let's go,
Sure,
let's go the way that we normally start here. I want to know about the house you grew up in. Tell me about what growing up was like for you.
Well, I grew up just maybe about 45 minutes outside of Toronto. Kind of a suburban area.
Right.
I got into music, well, I started playing guitar when I was about 12.
What's your background?
Nationality. I come from an Italian family.
Okay,
So
I thought so with the last thing, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
So, like, stereotypical Italian family?
Yeah, you could say that.
Mom and dad, like, first generation, or?
Actually, yeah, like, I'm actually a first generation Canadian.
Okay.
So all my family was actually born in Italy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's, with the exception of, like, cousins and
Sure,
all, like, family in my generation.
What did mom and dad do?
Well, Dad worked in renovations, contracting, and...
So living the stereotype.
Yeah. And no, my mom works for a law office.
Okay.
Yeah, so she works for a real estate law office.
What was it like growing up with them? What was family life like?
It was okay. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah,
like close family.
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty close family. Yeah. They've been like pretty supportive of me over the years, so they've let me make lots of noise growing up in the basement. And sometimes when I was too loud, I'd get the lights flickering on me. That's come up for dinner or whatever. You know?
Nice. So, do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I'm actually an only child.
Ah, okay. So did mom and dad sort of like let you be to your own paces, or did they push you through to some stuff?
No, I think they pretty much let me do my thing. Yeah. They were all supportive of me playing music and stuff. Yeah. So it's I'm definitely very thankful and fortunate that they kind of let me make as much noise and playing all those metal riffs over the years in the basement.
That's awesome. Are either one of them musically inclined at all?
Well, actually, my dad's side of the family was a little bit more musical. Like my grandmother was a singer, and not
back
like
in Italy,
not like a professional singer, but just definitely like that side of the family was a little bit more musical.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was music an important? I guess what I'm getting at, like, was music an important thing in your house, or was it just an important thing to you?
Well, I definitely think that it was an important thing, like in my household. Like there was definitely always music and stuff. Right. Like my dad loved music and listening to music, and I remember lots of car rides and lots of tunes and stuff.
Yeah. So, was he a rock and roll guy or like old country? Like
not so much. He was more into like kind of like funk and like pop tunes and stuff like that. But I guess a little bit of rock as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
all right.
Yeah, I remember finding some old like Zeppelin records and stuff. So yeah.
When did you become aware of the idea that it was something you might be able to do?
Pretty early on.
Yeah.
I had a really like immediate kind of passion for it. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. Like as soon as like a friend of mine was a drummer growing up, and I remember he like did this performance. He played Wipeout. You know that old like surf.
Of course.
He played Wipeout at like in our elementary school. We were really young. We were probably like 11, 12, and I saw him play that. And I was like, damn, dude, I'd like to be up there and doing that with him. And so it was pretty much since I started playing guitar, I felt like it was something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to play music and play in bands and do performances. And
so you're from the stuff that I've seen you play, you're super technical guy. You're a guy that spent a lot of time running bars.
Yeah, definitely lots of years and hours of practice.
Yeah, like locked up in the bedroom kind of kid?
Yeah, a little bit. Just lots of time with a metronome and and lots of
why was that part of it important to you, do you know?
Well,
because here's the reason I asked. Right? So like even as me as a musician as a kid, I didn't care about the numbers. I didn't want to be the most technical guy, and I mean in the end I threw away the guitar anyway and picked up the drums. But for me it was just about making the noise. Right. And that was the part that really sort of motivated me. But you wanted to get right into that technical aspect. Do you have any sort of perspective on it?
Well, when I started getting really into the technical side of things, I had probably been playing for maybe 3 or 4 years. Okay. And I had realized that I was kind of like plateauing with like where I was at. So it was just something that I wanted to take like a larger focus on to progress. So I felt like spending more time on the technical side of things would just make me a better musician as a whole. So that's when I started really buckling down and really kind of paying attention to technique and timing and more about harmony, scales, and chord voicings and things like that. So now obviously that was something you took internally and brought home and spent your time with that, but was that something that other people are aware of too? Like were you a guitar kid, or were you just a kid who played guitar? You know what I mean? Well,
to the rest of people, not was your perception is what I'm getting at.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I guess some friends of mine all played music as well, so
and they all knew.
Well, about the same type of theory things and whatnot. Well, maybe a couple of my friends growing up. Some of my high school friends and stuff. I wouldn't say were quite as involved in it as I was.
But did they know you were
as involved in it as I was? I'd say so, yeah. Most of my friends knew the passion that I had for playing and music, and sometimes if I didn't pick up the phone, they knew why I would be locked in my basement practicing. So,
was it were you in bands and stuff like that, or were you just solely just learning building your skills?
Well, I would definitely I was definitely playing in some bands with friends throughout school. I think the typical high school kind of talent shows and things like that. So I think the first time I did something like that was probably in grade 9. Okay. It was an arts night or something at our school.
How long had you been playing at that point?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2 years. So I remember they were playing this tune, and they were playing Enter Sandman.
Okay.
So they had asked me to like play the solo for them. So I went in and played that tune with them. So that was like the first time I had performed in front of like a large audience.
Tell me about that.
So it was great.
It was high school?
It was high school,
Okay.
yeah. It was, I don't know, like a lot of the time, even to this day, like once you're on stage, like even if you're up there for like an hour, it feels like you're there for like 30 seconds. It was just kind of like a rush and kind of a blur.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Just trying to figure out where you were and what you were doing. And
yeah, it was a lot of fun for me, man. It was definitely like fun to like get up there with other musicians and play. So
in school itself, were you a guy that had a bunch of friends, or were you kind of a loner kid?
I wouldn't necessarily say like I was a loner kid.
Right.
I definitely had friends that were also kind of into music and into metal. And
okay.
So that was kind of good for me. Yeah.
Okay, so you went to a school that kind of had like cliques like that?
It was definitely, I think most people can relate growing up. The metalhead communities in high schools are probably
always a clique.
Yeah. But yeah, no, there was definitely like a good group of friends that I had growing up that were like, we were all into similar things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Was it like, were you that stereotypical metal kid? Like, were you the, like, it was all about metal, like, you know, kind of like wearing the lifestyle, or was it just the stuff you listened to?
I don't know, it's hard to say. I think I was probably more of the metal kid.
Yeah?
Yeah. I actually went to a Catholic school. And,
okay.
You know, like.
Me too, by the way.
Yeah,
so
right
I
on. No, I know, man. Underneath the uniform, I always was rocking like my metal tees and stuff. So, yeah.
That's hilarious. I used to wear a black trench coat before the trench coat mafia thing.
Right on.
So, yeah, always something, right? That's funny.
Yeah.
So your first time on stage is your high school, you know, talent show thing.
That's right.
When's the first time, I guess why I was asking you the questions before about did other people know you were a guitar kid? I'm always interested to find out when artists figure out they're artists. Mm-hmm. So like, was you being a guitarist, like a guitar player, right, as being who you are, was that something somebody put on you, or was that something you identified in yourself? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something I probably identify myself with. Like, I wouldn't say that there was really anybody saying like, you know, you have to do this, and
yeah. So
it was just something that I've always been drawn to. As far back as I can remember, I've actually had this thing with music, and I remember I was probably about my first guitar I actually got when I was 4 years old. And I remember I was asking my parents, like, hey, like, I want to play an instrument, and like, it's hard when you're that young sometimes, right? So my dad had brought me like some like toy guitar, kind of like, it was like a half size or 3/4 size thing that I used to make a bunch of noise on, right? And actually, before moving up to Markham, we had moved in with my grandparents for a bit, and they had like stored the guitar in the garage. Okay. And I remember it was in there for a while, and when we had moved out, they pulled the guitar out and the neck was in 2 pieces. Oh. So, and I remember I asked my parents for so many years to like get me another guitar. Like, it was probably from when I was like, you know, I had the guitar for maybe a couple of years, but I never took any lessons or anything. Right. And when we moved up to Markham, I would ask for so many years, like, I want to get a guitar, I want to get a guitar, I want to get a guitar. And then finally, like when I was 12, you know, they caved and they had got me one, so I haven't put it down since.
That's funny. Did you get the guilt trip with it? Like, all right, you've been asking this for enough. If you ever put this down, you're done.
Not so much. No? I think like I think that they knew I would like when they saw how much time I was like putting into it. Yeah. Then I was never like the kind of kid that my parents had to tell me like go and practice. Okay. It was all something that it was my own initiative.
God, I always hated motherfuckers like you. I had to be told to do everything.
Yeah, really.
I really did. Like, anything I wanted to do, I was like, I don't know how to do anything. If somebody wasn't pushing me forward to get on board, and like I'd always envy kids like you. Like, I went to school with some guys like you that were like, you know, super into instruments really early on, really focused. It's funny that you brought up Wipeout, like, because especially talking about the Italian family. I grew up with a kid, there's an Italian family around the corner, and he's not a musician now, but what I remember of him was like all of a sudden, because never thought of him as a musician. Yeah. And all of a sudden we're doing a high school talent show, and he played Wipeout, and he was the drummer. I'm like, you don't even know you do this. And I just show up and like, how does that happen? It was like, it was weird for me, but you had friends and stuff that played, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, did you do the garage band thing?
Yeah.
Did you ever, outside of your, like, high school shows or whatever, did you ever try to get out and gig, that kind of?
Not so much with like, my high school friends.
Okay.
I probably started playing like gigs within like an original band, I was probably 17.
Okay, so still in school though.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I had joined like a metalcore band. I remember we were at HMV in our local mall, and the metal section there was like one row, right? So if you ran into another metalhead there, you'd be like, hey, what are you listening to, kind of thing. Right. So we ran into some other guys, and they had actually been playing in kind of like some metalcore style bands. And they said, hey, like, we're playing a show. You guys should come check it out. So we had gone down, and actually one of the other bands that they were playing with had just lost their guitarist. So I had auditioned for that band like maybe a week or two after that show, and then I ended up joining that band. So that's when I first started playing shows with them. So like we played some of the like places downtown, like the Fun House, which is no longer in existence, and like the Cathedral and the Reverb, which are also no longer there. And like we played a bunch of bars downtown together, and like even there was some bars up in Stouffville, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
And so we played there as well.
Oh, that's great.
We played all over the place. So like it was a great experience for me at the time. Yeah.
Talk to me about what that process was for you guys, because like kids going out and playing at bars.
Yeah.
So that's what you were, right?
Yeah.
Not typically a ton of like work ethic,
yeah,
that kind of thing. Was it the same thing for you?
Definitely, it's something you like learn over time and experience. Like I guess like things can be kind of chaotic when it's your like first time, and in terms of like the gear you're bringing and all that. But no, I guess everything is kind of like a learning experience.
Did you snap into it pretty quick?
I like to hope so.
Right.
I'd like to hope so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was a lot of fun for me.
I guess what I'm getting at here is, in order to get to the level that you play, you have to start thinking about music differently than a lot of the other kids you probably played with. When, or did you at all, did you ever notice that you were thinking about it in a way that was different than they were?
Well, I've always written a lot of music.
Okay.
Even from like, I think I wrote my first like set of riffs probably like when I was 14. So throughout high school, I had like a tablature program similar to Guitar Pro, and I would always like write my ideas on there and like start writing. And I guess like once I started writing like whole tunes and like presenting them to my friends and be like, hey, like, you know, are you guys into this? Do you want to learn it? I guess like maybe at that point, like, because I guess you'd say I was kind of taking the initiative to kind of get some extra work done.
Right.
And like try to come up with some original tunes and some, you know, some new sounds and some.
How's your experience through that? Because it doesn't always go well. There's, you know what I mean? Like when you got young dudes that, or I don't know if you played with any women, but you know, usually a bunch of young dudes kind of competing for who's gonna, excuse my language, everybody, but who's got the biggest dick in the room, basically. You know, you like competing, and kind of jumping on each other. Did you experience all of that? Any of that?
Like maybe a bit.
Maybe a bit, but
like,
nothing too hardcore.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like nothing too extreme. Like, yeah, I think it's kind
looking for a horror story here, man.
I guess I'd say it's good for like young musicians, right? Because having that sort of like competition around you at that age, like, will definitely like push you to become like, you know, a better musician, because you have all these dudes, like-minded dudes around you that like are all, you know, check out this riff, check out this lick. You know, it's a good way to kind of like push each other and get to the next level. So I think it's like definitely healthy to have like some of that competition like growing up. So yeah. Did
you have like, outside of your band, did you have like guitar player guys that you would go and hang out and learn from and kind of peel stuff off of?
Well, there was definitely like some guy, I remember like playing with like some older guys. Okay. Like there's one guy, Tim Smith, when I was probably about 17 and I saw him play, I was like, damn, like I gotta step my game up, because he was awesome. So
do you remember what it was about his playing that really enticed you?
He just seemed to have like a lot of licks down, and his rhythm playing was also really tight. Like he was just a really great player, like really precise, and so definitely made me want to step up my game from the technical aspect. So I definitely like hit the woodshed like once I started playing with him, you know. So
when you're writing and working, like, are you a guy that just kind of sits down with an idea that kind of and lets it flow, or do you have something that you're striving towards?
Usually I just try to let it flow.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like if you try to strive towards something like too much, I don't like to like force things. I like to just try to like let them happen so that it's more of like a natural like process. So yeah, I usually like will have an idea and then I'll just kind of like build from it and just play the idea and like see where it goes. So yeah, so I try not to like forcefully kind of write anything because I feel like it just doesn't have like as natural a feel after.
Did you train or were you mostly self-taught?
Well, I took lessons for the first 6 years of playing guitar, and after that I had kind of done my own thing for a little while.
What kind of teachers did you have?
I actually stuck with one teacher for the first like 6 years. So his name is Charles Amore, and he was a really great like influence for me just because he had like
was he specifically a metal guitar player?
No, no. He had actually come from more of like a jazz background.
Okay.
So yeah, so I took lessons with him for about like 6 years, and he even gotten me into like some recording stuff from early. Like he was actually like trying to like he was starting to get me like recording some of my pieces, and like maybe he would have like some tracks that he had. He's like Frankie, play a solo on this. I'll record you doing a solo on this.
Right.
So he was like the first person to really get me into like scales, chord progressions. He would like encourage me to write and all that. So yeah, it was awesome studying with him those first 6 years because he had a lot of passion for the instrument and that rubbed off on me. So he was definitely a good influence to have like at an early age. But I had gone on my own for maybe 3 years after that. I actually took some lessons with Glenn Drover, who's Eidolon guitar player, ex-Megadeth guitar player. So I had taken some lessons with him, and actually a buddy of mine was studying.
How does that even come about?
He was actually teaching lessons up in Long McQuaid.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, because he's a local guy. He's from like Mississauga.
Oh, see, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. He's from Mississauga, Brampton area. So he was actually teaching lessons.
Just kind of back home hanging out.
I remember I saw like the post in Long McQuaid. I was like, this guy's teaching in Long McQuaid. I'm gonna go take some lessons.
Right.
So I went and took some lessons with him, and we worked on like some solo ideas and some legato stuff and whatnot. Right. So yeah, it was cool. It was definitely cool to hang out with him. And I actually did a little bit of extra studying down in LA as well.
Okay.
There's Musicians Institute, GIT, down there.
Yeah.
So a buddy of mine was studying down there, and I had gone and stayed with him for a couple of weeks, and he got me a pass to come and do a bunch of open councils.
Oh, cool.
So I went and sat with a bunch of the instructors there at MI. And
what was that like for you? Different experience,
yeah,
right?
It's definitely a different experience, and like there's it can be kind of like a little bit intimidating because there's all these dudes that are there for the same reason. They're all wicked players.
Right.
So there's a bit of
and they were all the like greatest guy in their hometown before they showed up.
Yeah,
here.
There's definitely a lot of wicked guitar players. So you definitely want to go down there and make sure your game's at
how did you feel playing with those guys? Did you feel like you were at home, or did you feel like you had to catch up?
I guess it depends on what style. Because like the guys who play jazz and like that's their niche. Those guys have their stuff together, right? I don't I wouldn't say I'm a jazz guitarist, but that was one of the things like that I wanted to go down there and study. Like I just wanted to kind of learn more about harmony and like all the like chord voicings and more about chordal interchange and all those type of things. So yeah, like playing with those guys, well, you have to think a little bit more outside of the box, right? So yeah, no, definitely pushed me.
It's funny because I think we've brought it up now a couple of times on the podcast because I've been dealing with like metal isn't necessarily my background, but just by virtue of the way we've been moving, we've been dealing with a lot of metal guys.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm often amazed how often jazz is brought up in conversation with metal guys.
Yeah.
We were talking with Michael Keane from The Faceless a few months ago.
Yeah.
He's huge jazz influence, and it's
for sure
because I don't have the background in metal. Obviously, like up until recently, all of that stuff just kind of went right past me. But now that I've been paying more attention to it, I'm very impressed at the amount of transition that happens between those two genres. Is that like why do you think it's so connected?
Well, I definitely feel that more within like modern metal guitar players. I feel like more shred guitar players like coming up through the 80s and stuff it was a little bit more of like a neoclassical influence kind of thing.
Okay, I get that.
More modern guitar players, I still think like the classical influence is definitely there, but I feel like just within more modern music, I think the jazz is more of an influence, mostly just because musicians in jazz are using less typical kind of scales than like, you know, just the standard major minor scale or the basic modes and stuff. They're using some outside ideas, and they like, there's like a lot of like typical metal would be more towards like one key, where jazz is all different keys and like all this chordal interchange, like, you know, like there's this chord and this chord which aren't in the same key, and so you have to play within like all these different scales that are not necessarily in the same key. So that's definitely a really good way to like learn your fretboard
Does
better.
it just get to the point where you've gotten to the point where your fingers can do everything they can do and now you have to make your brain do different shit? Like, is that kind of...
Not necessarily, because like I feel like if you stop practicing and working on certain techniques, you're going to lose them. So it's definitely something that you have to keep up. It's like taking care of your vehicle. Like, you're going to have to get your brakes done every 3 years or so, right? It's the same kind of thing. Like, if you stop practicing, you're going to lose it. So yeah, like I like to, you know.
Are you a daily practicer still?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
What does practice look like for you these days?
Well, it kind of depends. There's certain days where I just want to play and mess around. There's some days when I want to mess around with my effects. There's some days when I want to work on this particular like exercise to a metronome. There's certain days when I want to work on, you know, playing within different keys or experimenting with some different scales that I don't normally use. So I like to shake things up a bit, you know.
My favorite question to ask any artist, because well, as soon as you hear it, you'll know what a stupid question is. How do you know when you're done?
You're never done, man.
But like when you're sitting, when you're messing around, when you're working on that new thing that you're going to bring to the band, how do you know that it's there?
Well, I guess whenever you have it to the point where you're kind of satisfied with it, I guess
just like, enough,
yeah,
right?
I feel like I'm.
Do you ever feel like you're bringing shit to people too early?
Maybe, but maybe you'll work a little bit harder to kind of get it down. It'll probably give you some extra motivation to work on it. So,
do you have stuff that you've taken forever to bring to people?
Yeah, I have some stuff that I've never brought to people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you ever like? How often do you go back to that stuff? Do you ever look at it as like a like a root cellar to go dive into kind of thing?
Sometimes, because sometimes you can pick out these like great ideas that you had written like years ago, and sometimes you go back and look on it and be like, hey, like, I can use this.
So it's funny because as you're talking, you keep doing like the keyboard finger thing.
Yeah.
You physically are writing stuff out. Like when you're writing stuff, you're not just like dicking around and recording and then setting away.
I write all the scores for like in my programs and stuff. Yeah. So yeah.
And how? I don't even know how to ask this, but like, how big is that collection at this point?
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff.
How much of your day just goes into organizing this shit?
Well, most of it's like I try to organize it from like when I go. So yeah, like, but there's some of the old stuff is kind of just hanging out,
just kind of floating
in this one area. Kind of, you know. Right. But I've been working on like a lot of. I've actually been writing like solo material as well.
Okay.
So I wanna do like an instrumental album.
Okay.
So I'm hoping like
what's the motivation behind that?
Well, it's something I've wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to write like an instrumental kind of guitar album. But I guess just over the years, I've always been in bands, and I've spent most of my focus and time on that I haven't really like spent the time to just sit down and kind of gather my ideas and write all my my own stuff out. So I guess I'm kind of to a point where it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, so I kind of want to get to that.
It's funny because I wonder from your perspective, like I don't know I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce the name. Is it Vesperia?
Vesperia, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm terrible with names.
No, it's good. It's
good. I almost never say anybody's name just because I'm so bad with it. But when you're dealing with Vesperia, because I understand like there's some pretty heavy hitters in Vesperia, right? Mm-hmm. So how long has that band been together?
With this current lineup, about 5 years.
About 5 years,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit of how you guys came together to start.
Well, the band actually started off as a band called Bolero, which was it was two of the current members of Vesperia, but with like a different drummer and other musicians, like a keyboard player and stuff, which was a little bit more of a...
But you were in that?
I wasn't in that particular band, right. But that was more of like a folk kind of death metal band.
Folk death metal?
Yeah.
There's another genre I have to look up. Okay.
So the band, they were changing their name, and they wanted to kind of like start playing darker music, more of kind of like death metal influence, more symphonic, kind of darker classical music influenced music. So I noticed that they said that we want to tour and we want to play a lot of shows and play some albums, and so they seemed like like-minded dudes, so I gave them a shout, and yeah, so
and just kind of peeled together.
Yeah, kind of
Okay.
just. Yeah.
So I guess where I was going with that when I first asked is like for me when I write, I'm a vocalist and rhythm guitar player. And even rhythm guitar player is kind of just a joke. I only started playing guitar because I was convinced nobody else would ever play with me. But when I write, because of that, I end up writing out, the basic chunks, and then I've got the vocals on top of it. And then really for me, when I walk into a band, it's everybody's just kind of adding their pieces to what I'm bringing in. A little different experience for you, right?
Well, like with our first release, when I had joined the band, they had pretty much had an album written.
Okay.
Right? So the first release, An Olden Tale, those songs were pretty much written all by Morgan. Okay. Which is our bassist and vocalist.
Okay.
So he had pretty much put all those tunes together. But after that album, we released an EP called The Western Tempest. So the sound of that album, that's kind of like where the band is going in terms of our sound now. Those particular songs, I've actually done most of the writing on. And I've done most of the writing on our next release that we've actually been working on this particular release for a couple of years now. Okay. We've been working to try to get it out as soon as possible. So that's the next thing on the list that we're hoping that we can release, by the end of this year, the start of next year.
You said you do most of the writing. You're doing lyrics and guitar work?
Not lyrics.
So just music?
Mainly the music.
Okay.
All the lyrics, that's all Morgan.
So then, So what's the process there? What's that like?
Well,
does everybody come together? Do you and Morgan just sit together?
Well, with there was a couple tunes where we had come together. Sometimes I'll bounce the ideas off the guys and be like, hey, what do you guys think of this? And then I'll put together most of the arrangement, and if everybody's happy with the rest of the arrangement, then I'll continue to work. So, yeah.
So you guys, it seems to me that you guys do a lot of your work apart.
Yeah, well, because we live kind of far from each other.
Oh, okay.
Most of us are at least like a 45-minute drive away from each other. So most of the time we'll just kind of bounce the files back and forth and be like, hey.
How often is it time to come together?
Well, definitely times where we would be like doing a lot of shows and lots of touring stuff. We would get together like twice a week, even 3 times a week at some point.
How much lead up do you give yourself?
In between
so if you've got a tour coming up or you're going to be on the road for a while. How many, are you in studio practicing for a couple of weeks, a couple of days, a couple of times?
Sometimes just for as long as, for a few months even, I don't know, it's just kind of good to get together and have fun and touch base. And
that's really what I was asking, because a lot of my audience and the people that I deal with, bands for them are what they do on the weekends to relax, right? So it's about getting together and spending that time together. No, you guys still have that?
Yeah, no, it's been a couple weeks since we've gotten together, but no, we I'd say we see each other fairly often. We're all pretty close outside of the band, and we've become good friends over the years. So
do you work outside of music, or is music your full time?
No, music's my full time gig.
Yeah. The band full time, or do you
not the band full time? But I actually my job actually that I've done for many years is I actually teach guitar.
Oh, great.
So I actually teach guitar up along McQuaid and Markham.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's actually my full-time.
So wait, did you replace the guy that from Megadeth that
No.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, no, that's different
son
location.
Of a bitch.
No, but different location.
That's funny. No, but that's great.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
how often are you traveling to play?
Probably not as often as I'd like to.
Yeah.
I definitely like to be traveling more and playing, but I guess it's just with the album and it's taken a little longer than we've hoped. So we want to kind of release our next full length album before we hit the road again. So hopefully we can get to Europe and whatnot next year. So
nice.
Yeah,
we've got a lot of musicians and developing musicians that watch our show. Talk to them at the level that you're working at, because when you guys tour, tour, right? You guys, you're not just playing around Toronto. You guys are going
across Canada
and Germany apparently.
Yeah,
right. What is that process like for you guys? What's the work involved there for you guys, or is that even something that you handle?
Well, it kind of depends whether you have management, whether you have booking and all that. Vesperia is actually a totally independent band.
Oh, okay. So, I just sort of assumed that you were.
Yeah, so the band is mostly managed all within house.
Okay.
So one of the things is you want to make sure that you have all your dates booked. you have a solid booking agent, and you know that you have like everything kind of finalized before you go out there.
Right.
Because you don't want to go out there guessing, right? So you want to make sure that you're prepared and you have all your dates and everything is like solid and locked up. So Morgan's actually had a really good manager role in the band where like he's done most of our booking and stuff. So yeah, so that's the main thing. You just want to make sure that you have all your cards laid out and everything is kind of put together.
Nice.
So yeah.
All right, so maybe one last piece of advice then. If the 12-year-old you, who I guess at 12 you'd already been playing for several years, but if the 12-year-old you was sitting back at home and clicked on YouTube and saw this you talking, what piece of advice would you give them?
Just stick with it.
Yeah.
If you love it, then stick with it.
Nothing else matters.
Yeah, like that's the thing. I know for me, it's kept me happy and over the years, right? And it's always given me something to do, and I always have something to work on, and always. So it's just if you're into it, just keep doing it.
It's fucking great when you're never bored, right?
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
Now that you are a Shredder of Metal champion, what does that mean for you, dude? Don't know yet.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy that they chose me, but I like to stay humble and stay on this level, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to. I want to see you play with the full band. Nathan Schiller, a mutual friend,
Nathan.
Fabulous guitar player back home in Windsor, was singing your praises before I came out here.
That's awesome.
I can't wait to be able to see you play live.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right, folks, that'll do it for this episode of the AVB Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to go down and click on the subscribe button to make sure that you can continue seeing our episodes as we put them out. We do a lot of videos, and there's a couple of them here that we hope you'll enjoy. There's one up there that we think you might like, and of course, there's one of our playlists down there for you. Make sure you say hello to some of our sponsors in the links down below while you're there, and of course, you can find links there to today's guest and all of our other social media. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.